We're in this sort of antique oddities shop.
Well, antique is a stretch, I would say. I would say more oddities. That some of them happen to be antiques.
Does it...
Like these teeth.
Yeah, the teeth,
Yeah.
these dolls.
These I'm going to steal. These I'm going to take.
When you look at this, I mean, or you look at anything like this.
Yeah.
How does it help you? What is scary to you? How do you define
what's scary? This isn't scary. This is gross. And that's people who don't understand our movies. And, you know, some of the directors, like, I can't wait to do it scary. They totally don't get the difference between gross and scary. Gross is not scary. Gross is like, ew. Scary is when you jump.
If a studio chief came to you and said, here's 200 million, I insist that you spend every penny, what would you do with it?
I would make 40 movies.
Does the phrase Moneyball for movies bother you?
You know, that's what we do.
You like it?
I love it. We look at people who Hollywood undervalues, and Hollywood is very guilty of undervaluing people. Everyone says in Hollywood, you're only as good as your last movie. That's so dumb. Hollywood would much rather bet on a director who's done a great short that won Sundance than a director who's made 5 movies, 2 of which worked, 2 of which didn't. You have changed film economics, probably forever. Well, that's very kind of you to say that.
Did that come out of necessity? Or was it part of the game plan from your earliest days?
No, I'll tell you, it came out of a very practical reason, which is movies traditionally have always taken forever to get made. And I got into low-budget filmmaking for a lot of different reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is if you start with a movie and you start at a budget at a certain level, one of the ways to get that movie greenlit is you keep lowering the budget.
If we were doing that right now,
yeah,
and we were looking at the budget sheet, where would we start to cut?
There's a triangle like this. There's the number of speaking parts in the movie, so the number of characters, the number of locations, and the number of stunts and special effects. What I always say to our directors is, you get to pick one. You can have a lot of speaking parts, but then not too many locations, no stunts, no special effects. Or whatever one of those 3 things they can have a little bit of. That's what we'd be talking about. I'd be telling you, that guy, does that waiter really need to ask them what they want to eat? Can he just come up to the table?
So that happens.
If the waiter says, do you want to hear the specials today? That actor's $550. If the waiter just comes up to the table and you cut away, that actor's $75. Yes, so it really happens. When
J-Lo says, are you kidding me? No trailer? 3,000 a week?
Yeah, no, there's resistance. There's more resistance from representatives than the artists. Artists want to work. You know, and so there's less resistance, and artists believe in their work. What my system does is you bet on, if the work works, everyone gets paid. When the movie came out, she did very well for 4 weeks' work. The community initially was very reluctant to dive into our model, but they've come around. We paid a lot of people a lot of money in back end on our movies, and now people are less resistant. But in the beginning, it was very hard. Instead of getting a percentage of profits, which no one can define, we actually give actors X amount of dollars at certain box office levels. So there's no vagueness. If you open Variety and you see my movie hit $40 million, you know you're going to check for 100 grand or 200 grand or whatever it is.
So if they could all go like that, you'd be happy.
No, then life would be boring. I mean, come on, that would be terrible. We have a lot of records, our company, a lot of profitable movie records. We also hold a record for the lowest grossing wide release film of all time, which is not a particularly good record that you want to hold, but we do have it for Gem and the Holograms.
Right. So how does that instruct your education?
Well, Gem and the Holograms is a specific thing because that movie, there's some movies that we've done that just didn't come out very well, and so then you understand it. That movie actually is a great movie, and there are other factors that played into why the movie didn't work. So that was really heartbreaking. I had one weekend, I had Paranormal Activity 6 and Gem and the Holograms, and I was like, that's going to be the greatest week. We're going to have the #1 and #2 movie. It's going to be the greatest weekend the company's ever had. They both bombed. The Purge probably is the best example of, or one of my favorite examples of kind of kind of touches all the aspects of what I feel like we do best. Really all takes place in a house, but it's about this huge idea. What if crime is legal for 12 hours a year, every year? What would happen? There's one location. There are 6 speaking parts, maybe 7. And it's what I always say to our staff to keep your eyes out for, which is low budget, high concept, scripts.
Do you remember where it came from? The
security camera?
Yeah, that look?
It came from the first Paranormal Activity. He fixed the camera in the bedroom, and so at night you saw that frame.
It's scary.
It's scary, and it's very cheap. You stick your camera up there, you let it roll, you could go forever, and it's very inexpensive too. So it checks 2 boxes.
I think the number I saw recently was last year, the number of $100 million budget movies was up by like 30%.
Yeah.
And a lot of, certainly Wall Street analysts who cover studios, worry that A, Hollywood will alienate their broad audience, and by the time they come back to them and start making normal movies again, it'll be too late. Those people will be watching the movies at home. Do you think that's true?
Well, we're in an amazing time in terms of audience and how they're consuming movies and consuming content, and no one knows where it's going to go. Like, our movies, are they going to play at home at the same time? Are some going to be longer and some going to be shorter? And that's affecting what kinds of movies are being made. And I think at the moment everyone's in a total panic about it. I think in 5 years there'll be the movie business, actually, I think will be much healthier than it is now. It'll be even better than it is now because there'll be less uncertainty around it. But right now, yes, there's a huge audience for movies, but no one really knows where we're going to capture them.
Does your model work best in horror, best in sci-fi? Does it work in comedy?
Our model for sure works best in scary movies. I think when people pay $10 or $8 or $12 to go see a comedy, they want someone real. They want Adam Sandler or whoever it is. They want someone they know really well, who's really funny, and they want to spend an hour and a half with that person or 2 hours. Scary movies are actually hurt by having movie stars in them. When you have a huge star in a scary movie, it actually makes the movie less scary because the people are watching this movie star in this, you're jumped out of the movie all the time. It's much scarier for someone who's a great actor, whose shoes you can put yourself into. There's an ingrained thing in the DNA of Hollywood of that when you're successful, you should do a more expensive movie. So it's really, and I'm in the position now where I could do a more expensive movie and we choose not to. And that is not what you're supposed to do in Hollywood. I'm supposed to be making $100 million movies, and I'm not. And I'm really glad about that.
So when around town, do people say, hello, hello in there?
Make it more expensive.
Yeah.
But they don't say it to my face, but I'm sure they say it behind my back.
So I'm going to ask you some rapid fire.
Yeah, sure.
Just answer them as quickly as you can. Name a blockbuster movie whose size of budget flat out shocked
The
you.
last Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Could you make Star Wars on the cheap?
You could definitely make Star Wars on the cheap, but it would not be nearly as good as the one that they made.
All right, name a mega big budget blockbuster that you could make on the cheap. That's a tough one.
Big budget blockbusters are effects heavy, and so I actually can't do that. I don't think there is one that you could make on the cheap.
Which presidential candidate would make the best horror movie?
Donald Trump times 100.
Does it matter if people see a movie, your movie, at home, on their phones, in a theater?
It's up to them. I'd prefer them to see it in a theater, but it's entirely up to them how they see it. Doesn't bother me. As long as they see it, I'm happy, and not pirated.
Right. What's VR going to do to film?
I don't think VR is going to do a lot to film for a while because a VR experience is a short experience. I've done a lot of VR. It's not going to do anything to film. The one thing it will do is, I think relatively soon, that's how we're going to watch 2D movies, is on VR. So I think you're going to walk down the aisle of a plane, you're going to see a lot of people watching movies with glasses on their face.
Do you scout YouTube for talent?
We do. Our executives do. I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube myself looking for people, but our executives do.
Could you shoot an entire film on an iPhone?
Definitely. I've seen one shot on an iPhone. For sure.
Anything Apple or Tim Cook can do to make that process easier?
I think they're doing pretty good on that front. I'd like to see a movie shot on an iPhone that was shot vertically, so you'd watch it in a vertical format.
Really?
I think that'd be really cool.
You're a fan of profile over
Well,
landscape?
yes, if you were going to watch that movie on a phone, it should be shot I think that would be really interesting. I haven't seen that before.
Are you surprised more people haven't tried to copy your model?
I was initially worried about people, but I think because kind of to the point when you asked about horror getting more respect, like one of the fun things about scary movies is that it is outside. It's not very sexy, and so I think people like to think we're going to do that, we're going to like to do it, but then when they actually get their hands in it, they don't seem to do it. So I used to worry about it a lot, but I don't worry about it as much now.
What do you binge?
I binge Billions, House of Cards. I just binged a terrific show which will come out in July on HBO with John Turturro.
Can you imagine trying to do what you do in other high-cost, high-risk businesses other than film?
Yeah, I'm very cheap. So
I can
my
tell.
personality really comes out of my company, so I think you could do it. I think there's a lot of waste, and I think it has to do with people worried about hurting other people's feelings or something. I think you could do a lot of things low cost, and I don't know what I would attack next, but I would like to try.
Hey CNBC fans, I'm Carl Quintanilla. Thanks for watching CNBC's Binge on YouTube. You can subscribe by clicking right here. Watch all of our interviews on the changing media landscape. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch more from CNBC. Thanks for watching.